Her ship crashed in a storm, in enemy territory, with a war to win and a kingdom depending on her finding the right ally. What she found instead was
Princess Elwen of the Silvani royal house had spent 6 years preparing for the moment she would meet her champion. The prophecy was specific, as prophecies in the Silvani court tended to be. When the kingdom faced its darkest hour, a warrior from beyond the stars would arrive to stand beside the royal bloodline and turn the tide of the war against the Karath invasion. Elwen had trained with the royal guard since she was 9 years old specifically to be ready for this warrior's arrival, to fight alongside whoever the prophecy delivered, to prove herself worthy of standing in their company. She had not expected her ship to crash 3 systems away from where the prophecy's navigational coordinates indicated, on a backwater agricultural world that her star charts barely listed. She had not expected, climbing from the wreckage with her ceremonial sword drawn and rain soaking through her gown, to find a single human man standing in the mud holding a small handheld light, looking at her with an expression that contained considerably more confusion than awe. "You're not what I expected to find out here," he said. "I require assistance," Elwen said, holding her sword in the formal ready position her weapons instructor had drilled into her since childhood. "My vessel has crashed. I am Princess Elwen of the Silvani royal house, and I am searching for the warrior foretold to." "Hold on," the man said, raising his free hand in a gesture that was clearly meant to slow her down. "You're hurt, your ship's on fire, and it's raining. Let's deal with that first and do the introductions after." Elwen looked at him. He did not look like a warrior. He looked, by every visual indicator she had been trained to recognize, like an agricultural worker. Weathered face, work jacket, the particular calluses visible on the hand holding the light that suggested decades of manual labor rather than combat training. "Are you the warrior of the prophecy?" she asked directly. "I'm Daniel Reyes," he said. "I grow wheat about 2 miles that way." He gestured vaguely behind him. "I don't know anything about a prophecy. But your ship's about to stop sparking and start actually burning, so we should probably move." She registered with some irritation, correct about the ship. She lowered her sword, not sheathing it but lowering it, and followed him away from the wreckage as the electrical fires finally caught properly and the crashed vessel began burning in earnest behind them. His farmhouse was a 40-minute walk through rain and mud, and Elwen spent most of it explaining the prophecy, the war, the Karath invasion that had taken 3 Silvani border worlds in the last 2 years, and the specific navigational coordinates that should have brought her ship to a warrior's homeworld and had instead brought her here. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "I'm 51 years old," he said. "I've never been in a fight that wasn't with my brother-in-law about fence lines. I don't know the first thing about war." He looked at her. "I think your navigation system made a mistake." "Silvani navigation systems do not make mistakes," Elwen said, with more confidence than she currently felt. "Then I'm very confused about what I'm supposed to be doing here," Daniel said. They reached his farmhouse, simple, practical, warm light visible through the windows, and he made tea while she sat at his kitchen table in her ruined gown, sword resting across her lap, and tried to understand how 6 years of preparation for meeting a warrior had resulted in a farmer. "Tell me about the war," he said, setting a cup in front of her. He told him. The Karath advance. The border worlds lost. The specific tactical situation that had led the Silvani Royal Council to authorize the prophecy expedition. A desperate measure, sending the youngest royal princess across multiple systems based on a centuries-old text, because conventional military strategy had stopped producing results. "What's losing actually look like?" Daniel asked. "Specifically, not the prophecy version. The real version." Elwen looked at him. "Why does that matter?" "Because I want to understand what I'm being asked to help with," he said, "before I decide whether I can." So she told him the real version. The supply lines that had collapsed. The evacuation logistics that had failed at 3 border worlds because no one had planned for civilian displacement at that scale. The fact that the Korath advance was not primarily a military problem. It was a logistics and resource allocation problem that the Silvani Military Command, trained entirely in formal combat doctrine, had no framework for solving. Daniel was quiet for a long moment. "I've run a 4,000-acre farm by myself for 20 years, he said. Supply chains, resource allocation, contingency planning for weather disasters, coordinating seasonal labor across unpredictable conditions." He looked at her. "That's not war. But it might be the thing your military command doesn't have." Elwen sat with that for a moment. The prophecy had specified a warrior. Everything in her training, in her expectations, in the careful preparation of 6 years had been built around meeting someone who could fight. "You're not what the prophecy described," she said. "No," Daniel agreed. "But maybe the prophecy described what you needed and got the job title wrong." He looked at her steadily. "What does your military actually need right now? Not glory. Not a champion. What's the actual problem?" She thought about the border worlds. The collapsed evacuation logistics. The resource allocation failures that conventional military doctrine had no answer for. "Someone who can solve problems no one trained for," she said slowly. "That," Daniel said, "I might actually be able to do." Elwen looked at this human farmer in his simple kitchen, with his weathered hands and his 20 years of solving problems no prophecy had ever mentioned, and felt something shift in her understanding of what she had been sent to find. "The expedition ship that brought me has a return transit window in 6 days," she said. "If you came with me, it would not be glory. It would be logistics, supply chains, and the unglamorous work of fixing systems that are failing." "That's most of farming," Daniel said. "I think I can manage." "You would be leaving everything you know," she said. "I've got a neighbor who's been wanting more acreage for years," Daniel said. "He can have the farm. I'll be back or I won't, but either way." He paused. 6 years you